Today, we're going to be talking about the latest injury update around Coby White. We're also going to be talking about early season predictions for the Chicago Bulls. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Matas Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And let's start with the latest injury update around Coby White. And so the last time that we talked about Coby White, the team planned to go ahead and have him ready for the season opener against the Detroit Pistons. And so they had sat him out throughout the entire preseason to go ahead and give him some time to get ready for the season opener. And so before we go into the most recent update, we did have an update over the weekend that said that Coby White did get a chance to practice and that he was still expected to go ahead and start the season for the Chicago Bulls against the Detroit Pistons. And so since then, we get another update that Coby White is actually going to be out a little bit longer. And so this was something that was tweeted out by the team. And also, too, we'll talk about what Billy Donovan had to say in his presser. But it says that, look, the medical update is that Coby White has resumed on-court basketball activities and continues to make progress in his ramp-up phase for a right calf strain. White will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. And so, look, this is some tough news because it went from he's going to be ready to start the season to now he's going to be out for at least 2 more weeks before they reevaluate him, which means that it could be longer. And so Billy Donovan did talk about this a little bit more in his presser. And so just paraphrasing some of the key points out of this, if you want to check this out, you can head over to the CHGO YouTube page and you can check out the presser. He spoke, Trey Jones, and then also to Josh Giddey. And so what Billy Donovan had to say about Coby White and his situation is this. He said that it's not a setback. He said that he did practice Saturday and that coming out of the practice, he felt tightness. Billy Donovan did say that they did have a minutes restriction in place for him where they wanted to play him 20 to 24 minutes. And he also talked about the fact that he's going to need some more conditioning. And he talked about that, look, at the end of the day for him, you know, the conditioning, like he can do those things and stuff like that. But to get back into it, you know, he's going to have to get up and down the floor, you know, actually get back to basketball activities and kind of going at guys to really get himself back into some good shape here. But right now, it looks like that the plan is that they are going to take another 2 weeks before they reevaluate him and to see if he's ready to go. And so they want to make sure they get to a point in time where there's no tightness. And so, look, this is, again, concerning because you're talking about a calf injury. You know, these calf injuries over the last year have led to some Achilles injuries. And that's certainly something that you don't want to happen with Coby White. And so I love the fact that they're taking, you know, the precautions with him. But this is tough for the Chicago Bulls because it is going to be a tough start for the season. And one of the things that Josh Giddey talked about in his presser is that, you know, with Coby White, he's a scorer. Like he's definitely a guy that, you know, they can depend on to score. And he said that, you know, make no mistake about it, like it sucks that he's not going to be there. But he talked about the fact that, you know, collectively, the team is going to have to come together and other guys are going to have to step up. He still believes that once Coby White does get out there, that they're going to be able to get back to that same type of chemistry that they had at the end of the season. And so that was Josh Giddey talking a little bit about it. And Trey Jones said the same thing. I think that he really echoed a lot of what Josh Giddey had to say. And Billy Donovan also, too, spoke on it, saying that, yes, this team is going to have to do it collectively. And so that is the latest update here with Coby White and his injury status. And so next, I wanted to jump into just some early season predictions here. And really what I'm looking at is the first month of the season. And so, you know, you see the 0 to 100. And so what we're talking about there is 0 to 100% of just where we are with these things. And so the first thing that I have, you know, as far as early season predictions here is that Matas Buzelis will be the best player for the Bulls in the first month of the season. And so right now for me, I think that this is about a 50 to 60% chance that this happens. I think that, there's the real possibility that Matas Buzelis kind of steps in and just really takes off as a scorer because Coby White's not there. Josh Giddey talked about it. And I think, clearly the team knows as well that you don't have a scorer like Coby White. So somebody's going to have to step up. Obviously you would like it for it to, be something where it's spread across the team. But I think that Matas Buzelis is that guy that could really take the leap here as far as the score, because he's shown that really in his preseason play. In fact, just kind of going into, another tweet here from Hoop Central, just talking about his numbers in 3 of the preseason games. Like, this is a guy that was going out there and getting, the 19 to 20 points a game. You see that the efficiency was there with the 8 of 13 and the 7 of 12. And this is a guy that, look, he showed that certainly he can knock down the 3 ball, but I also liked what we saw with Matas Buzelis really in the transition game as well. I think defensively, he's showing some signs here in year 2. I know he's still got a lot of work to go with that, but still, it's encouraging to see the block shots that we saw and everything else. The splits for him, 57, 39, 79 was his shooting splits, and he's averaging 17.6 points per game in preseason. And so I do think that there's a strong chance that he could be the Bulls' best player in the first month of the season. And I have it at 50 to 60% because I still think that, there's the chance that maybe Josh Giddey, he's the, best player for the Bulls, or it could be somebody else. Like, I'm not ruling out the fact that it could be Ayo Dosunmu, with his two-way ability and his ability to kind of just distribute the basketball, get the steals and everything else like that, and score too. And so, his impact could be huge for the Bulls early, and maybe even a Trey Jones like that. But, just going back to just Matas Buzelis, like, I do feel like it's a pretty good chance here. We'll see. I mean, this is a guy, like I said, that I can't wait to see what that transition game is going to look like. As you can see here, him just getting out into the open floor. And I love the fact that they're going to be running some of the stuff like this, where he's getting these dribble handoffs and knocking down threes and stuff like that. I think the question for him is, can he get to that mid-range? And I just love the fact that he's showing you the handle, coming off the screens, and just kind of maneuvering through there and finishing. And so I think that there's a high likelihood that he's going to be right there as the number 1 player for the Bulls here in the first month of the season. And so the next, percentage that I wanted to go and take a look at here is just, will the Bulls be above 500 in the first month of the season? And so right now for me, I have this at about 30 to 40%. I think that the Bulls are right there as far as being over 500 in the first month of the season, because the schedule is so tough. I mean, they have the Pistons, Magics, Hawks. They got to play the Knicks twice. They got the 76ers, Bucks, Cavs, Spurs, Pistons again. You have the Jazz, Nuggets, Trailblazers, Heat, and the Wizards, like to really start off the start of the season here. And so, look, it's going to be tough, especially when you're talking about teams that have been in the playoffs and things like that. But I will say this, the NBA is a fluid situation, and the Bulls are going into this one banged up, because one of the things that Billy Donovan talks about is that, look, you have Coby White, who's going to be out. You also have Ayo, where he said it's not anything serious. He's dealing with a thumb injury. Patrick Williams, I think he said that he's dealing with a groin injury. He said that both of those things are not serious. Trey Jones, he did jam his foot, and so he looked pretty good there at the end of preseason. But he was like, look, the bottom line is that the Bulls are going to have to now take a look at their lineups on a game-to-game basis here. And so, just going back into his presser, he said that the lineups will change based on the teams, and then also too just based on what's going on with the team, and just minutes restrictions, injuries, and stuff like that. And so it's going to be a tough situation for the Bulls, I think, to really get that kind of maybe continuity, because they just haven't been whole. And that's one of the things that Billy Donovan talks about, is just having everybody together, with no injuries and stuff like that, ready to go. And so I do think that it's going to impact the start of the season, which is going to make it tough for them, which is why I'm under 50% for them to be over 500, in the first part of the season. And I think that as this starts off and as it goes along, talking about the season here, the Bulls are going to have to really try to figure out if they can get to their identity, which is another thing that was mentioned in Billy Donovan's presser, and really just kind of establishing winning habits and things like that. And so let's see if this team can do this over the first course of the month. I think that this is going to be a real test, with these injuries and just really trying to find your identity on the defensive side of the ball, the offensive side of the ball, and just really how that's going to impact this team. Because one of the things too, just going back to that first point with Matas Buzelis and just him being the best player, and just really what they're going to do with Coby White being out as a scorer, this is a team that they cannot afford to just go into ISO mode with players and things like that. Like, it has to be a strong team effort for things to really come together on both sides of the ball. And so let's see what happens here in the early season. And so I think that they are 30 to 40% as far as just falling under that 500 mark. And so next, the last thing that I wanted to talk about here was Noa Essengue, and just what are the chances of him being in the rotation early in the season. And so for me, initially, before, all this injuries and everything else, I had this at about a 20 to 30% chance. Now I'm at about 60 to 70%. I think that there's a 60 to 70% chance that Noa Essengue gets a chance to get into the rotation early for the Bulls and plays a significant role, because you don't have Zach Collins out there, right? So you're going to lose some of your size there in the front court. Then also too, with Coby White, it says that he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. And so even after the 2 weeks, you don't know if he's going to be ready to go. And then also too, with Ayo Dosunmu, I think he's going to be fine, but still, there's the chance that these guys could get a little banged up. And so I think that with Billy Donovan saying that, hey, the lineups are going to change and, stuff like that, and rotations will change based off what's going on with the team, why not throw Noa Essengue out there and see what you have? Because if Noa Essengue can really do a lot of the stuff that Matas Buzelis did in year one, which I say that all the time, then I think that there is a chance that you could really have something here in year one with him. And Billy Donovan even says that Noa Essengue, he loves the way that he approaches the game. Like, he has a high basketball IQ. Now, he does say that he needs to get stronger and everything else, that's a fact. But if he's able to come in and he has a good feel for the game like this early, I think that he's going to be able to get away with a lot of stuff early with his athleticism and his feel for the game, kind of a lot like what Matas Buzelis did. And if he has that same mindset, I trust that he's probably going to just really get it a lot sooner rather than later. And so let's see what happens with that. I do think that he is going to get into the rotation, and I do believe that Noa Essengue will gain the trust of Billy Donovan here early on in the season. And so you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Do you feel like that Noa Essengue will be a big part of the rotation for this team? Again, I have him at 60 to 70%. I understand that there's players that are ahead of him, like Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry and Patrick Williams. But keep in mind, he just said that Patrick Williams is dealing with a groin injury, and Julian Phillips, well, he missed games due to a knee, and then Kevin Huerter also missed with a groin. And so those are things you have to factor in when you're talking about players getting an opportunity. And so Noa Essengue could be in line for a big opportunity. And then next, as far as Matas Buzelis and him being, again, just the top player for the Bulls this month, like, I think that there is a strong possibility he could do so. Not to take anything away, from Josh Giddey, because I think he's going to be right there as well. But I do think that Matas Buzelis, his approach and just the way that he is, like, I could see him really kind of taking a major step forward, without Coby White out there. And one of the things that Billy Donovan did say in his presser, which I love this as well, is that, again, just going into the fact that this team doesn't have, players that they can play like isolation ball with and stuff, like, it's something that everybody collectively has to, do it, collectively to get this team to the highest level. And so with Matas Buzelis, he said that, he should be able to play with Coby White, like, and still be, as impactful. And so I think that this is going to be the chance for him to kind of step in, take advantage of this. And then also too, once Coby White gets back, like I think that adjustment actually helps a guy like him and Josh Giddey and really the entire offense when you have somebody that kind of, lifts the top off of a defense like Coby White does. And so let's see what he does in the first month of the season. Again, I still think that you can also talk about a guy like Ayo. You can talk about a guy like Trey Jones, or really if somebody else decides to step up, I think it's a real possibility as well. And then lastly, let me know what you guys are thinking as far as this team getting over 500 in the early part of the season, because I think that this, to me, certainly got lower, especially when you think about the fact that the front court's going to be hurting with Zach Collins out. Then also, too, we just talked about it with Coby White. And I think another thing that I just wanted to mention as well is with Vooch. Like, Vooch showed us something at the end of the season, but it's certainly going to impact this team if he's not at a high level throughout this first month. And so if he is headed towards a decline, which I'm hoping he's not, I don't think that he is. I think that he pretty much paced himself through the preseason. But if that happens, that certainly is going to impact what happens to the Bulls here in the early part of the season, as they're trying to figure things out, with their identity and stuff like that, especially with Isaac Okoro and his situation, because remember, he also missed at the end of the season with an injury as well. And so let's see what happens with that. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking there as far as your percentages. And lastly, let me know what you guys are thinking with the most recent information with Coby White. Once again, he will be out for at least another 2 weeks, and then he'll be reevaluated, and we'll see if he makes it back to start playing some games for the Chicago Bulls. And so, as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.